Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia. Listen up. WynnBET is now live in all these states, and the excitement of Wynn Las Vegas has finally landed in online sports betting and casino play. From boosted parlays to live in-game offs on every major sport, WynnBET gives you the tools to win. Sign up today for your risk-free $1,000 sports bet. Download the WynnBET app now or visit wynnbet.com to start winning.
You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by TJ Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
And mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country. Welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I am your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me, as per always, is my good friend and colleague. He is Mile High Huddle's senior NFL draft analyst, the one and only Erick Trickel. Now, Erick, dude, great show lined up for tonight. We've got an amazing mock draft. We've got Black Knight in the house tonight to help us to go through and do this mock draft. He's going to be the general manager making the selections as we break down all the players that are available for the Broncos at their current position. But before we get into that, we're going to break down something that Noah Fant said in the usage and whatnot. Anyways, how we doing, man?
Doing good. Extremely tired as we're in the final stretch. It's April. Draft's at the end of the month, so just trying to crank out all the scouting reports I need to, and been getting 2 a day up for the past about week and a half or 2 weeks or so, and it's going to continue all the way up to the day before the draft of cranking out 2 a day. So a little bit tired there. I know I have a mock draft sitting and waiting that Chad's supposed to be getting up sometime, but as tired as I am, there's plenty of excitement for the draft to finally be here. Excited for the being live throughout the draft that we're going to be, the group mock draft that we're going to be doing towards just before the draft. So a lot of excitement that all this build up for the draft, as always, is about to come to an end, and fortunately we'll have to wait a while as Bronco fans before we see the first pick, but still is exciting.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, it's always the long build up and the long process. I wish that they would either bump the draft up a little bit or, you know, move a little bit around in the off season and stuff like that to kind of, you know, not have this long gap between the combine and the opening of free agency. You got 6 weeks from the opening of free agency to the beginning of the NFL draft. We're 4 weeks away, exactly 4 weeks away. Yesterday would it be the first round of the NFL draft? Not that the Broncos have anything to worry about there unless they trade up into the tail end of the first round. But day 2, we will be live covering the entire day 2, at least from what I understand, for sure. Maybe day 1 as well. But we'll be doing the same live draft coverage that we did the last couple of years here on the Huddle Up Podcast Network. And Friday is our day. I mean, that's the Dove Valley Deep Divers Day. So we are going to be super excited to join you there. But man, this Noah Fant comment that he put out the other day talking about his usage, I'm fairly certain that you and I have a lot of things to say about this. And for some context, guys, I got to just read you the quote. Noah Fant was interviewed the other day. He found out about his trade to Seattle from the TV. And wow, I got some weird sound in my ears. Hold on. Maybe. Anyways, what he said was, honestly, like from my perspective, I'm not going to say I've been the perfect prospect drafted in Denver, but I felt like I've done some pretty good things in Denver and had some really good moments. But, you know, it's a part of the business. I think it's what kind of what I learned the most from this whole experience. I kind of like, you know, bled orange and blue a little bit. And then when it kind of comes down to it, it's totally understandable. They had a chance at Russell Wilson, but it's anybody's kind of expendable. So it's just one of those things. Hold on. I got to mute this. Sorry, guys. There's an ad playing in my ears right now. Now, to find out that he was traded to the Seattle Seahawks, he actually found out from ESPN. He heard that the Broncos were trading for Russell Wilson, and there was like a moratorium on the info getting out, and somebody leaked it before all of the players were notified. And Noah Fant was the guy that really was upset at the way he found out about it. Erick, what do you think about that?
I mean, I get where he's coming from. Obviously, you want to hear from it from, you know, the boss man, not from TV. But as he said, like, it could happen to anybody. And, like, the only way you can really guarantee that you don't hear from his TV is not watch TV. So I get where he's coming from. But at the same time, like, man, I mean, like, there's been rumors leading up to it this whole time, and here you are.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. It is unfortunate though that is the nature of the beast in the NFL. You know, information passes and changes hands so quickly, and it changes even faster than that. Like something that you hear 15 minutes ago is actually about 20 years old by the time that you actually get that information in your hands. It's crazy. I mean, Eric, I know you and the people you talk with and stuff like that get as much information as we possibly can. I mean, even guys like Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport, Ben Albright, like they all have information that comes in like, okay, this is what I've heard. This is what I'll share you this information. But 10 minutes later, it can completely change because decision-making happens so fast behind the scenes at the NFL that it's like, you don't know how to follow along with that. And unfortunately for Noah Fant, he kind of got caught in the struggle here. Now, the big quote that I wanted to get was this one, and it was specifically about the way that he was used in Denver. And he said, quote, "I feel like when I came into the league, that's what I was drafted to do, right?" He said, making of explosive plays. Get down the field and make those explosive plays and kind of be that pass-catching tight end. And over my time in Denver, I felt like that narrative kind of got muddled down a little bit. It was more of a focus of me catching flat balls or whatever it may be, and then trying to be a shifty guy and elusive guy and try to break as many tackles as possible to get my yards. I view myself as a downfield threat, getting open space. Then I can make things happen. It was a little frustrating to be used in the short field, close quote. Now, Eric, this goes specifically to something that you and I talked about in terms of the way that the Broncos were using him, the quick out routes out in the flat, getting the ball quickly. And he's just not shifty enough or elusive enough. And he just kind of pointed it out there to be that guy to go break tackles out in the flat. And that was a sticking point for you and me specifically on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast over the past. Why is this such a blatant, not really overstatement, but perfect statement, I guess is the way to say that?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a perfect statement. And fortunately, I'm not on Twitter where Noah Fant can search out his name to tweet me out in front of all of his fans again for saying my take on it. But he's not wrong. His usage in Denver was bad. There's no question about that. There's no denying that. The issue here is that when you go out there on the field, you still have to do what is asked of you, and you have to give it your all. And anybody could turn on Noah Fant's tape and realize, yeah, his effort last year wasn't the best.
Yeah.
Could have been issues off the field. I mean, with loss and everything like that. There's a lot that could be behind it. But his effort wasn't great. And that's all that there was to it. Like, he wasn't going out there. He wasn't doing the giving it all. And so, like, you can sit here and blame the scheme all you want, but you got to sit there and look in the mirror sometimes. And here's the other issue with what he said is two of his biggest plays have come from him catching something in a short or shallow route, breaking tackles, and making something happen. That big play against the Texans was out in the flat, or not in the out route, and then that big play against the Browns was a crossover where he broke 2 or 3 tackles.
Yep.
And here's another thing on top of it that Noah Fant seems to have an issue with. When he was leaving Iowa, he complained about his usage in Iowa as being only just this receiver, deep threat guy, and he was more than that. He could be that blocker and work those short and shallow routes. And now he is saying that's not how he is. And before a game one year, I think it was not last year, but 2020, in a pregame interview with Fox or somebody, he was talking about how breaking tackles is his strength. Like, it seems like that he's just trying to throw, like, no doubt that there's deserved shade here thrown at Pat Shurmur, but come on now, like, he's got to look in the mirror a little bit. There was issues with him, and he just seems to trying to shove that aside and be like, oh no, none of it was my fault. And it's been an issue with him for, going back to college. I mean, he didn't like that he got beaten out by the Hawkinson.
Yep, TJ Hawkinson, yep.
He didn't like that. He spoke out about that. He spoke out multiple times after games about how he was used. So, like, I don't know. Like, I wish him well in Seattle. I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he's able to go out there and have a great career. But, I mean, dude, Twitter search his name.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest red flags that Erick actually has as far as character concerns is Twitter searching your name and joining yourself into the conversation that way. Like, if you get tagged, that's one thing, but to Twitter search your name where it's searching Noah Fant or just Fant or something like that, it's a pretty big red flag for Erick. I know that for a fact. We're gonna say hello to the chat really fast. Lauren's finally getting a chance to catch a show because, quote, I'm notified on time, but I knew it last year was wasted. Noah Fant, there's some issues here with me. you're talking about a guy that's used in terms of like the flat routes, the shallow outs, the quick outs and stuff like that. He's going to a team that runs a very similar system where they're going to use him in the exact same way. They're not going to stretch the field vertically. So he better have the same issues that he has with Denver in Seattle, and he has Drew Lock throwing him the football again. So it's an interesting dichotomy here because you can be upset about the usage, and I agree with him. I definitely agree with him. He does need to be that vertical seam stretching guy, or even as Erick brought up on the deep crossing route that he had against the Cleveland Browns his rookie season, broke those couple tackles, took it 75 yards to the hizzy. Like this guy has a lot of talent as far as a straight line speed burner. He actually runs a lot better routes than people want to give him credit for, but the effort's just not there. He's not the best blocker. He didn't work on the technique enough. Albert Okwuegbunam seems to have been able to do that. So it is a waste. And there's another one I wanted to grab. It was something about the players that we traded to the Seahawks for Russell Wilson. It was kind of a drag to see Noah Fant be the one to go. That was actually my big opinion because I wanted to see what Noah Fant would be able to do in an offense that might utilize his skill set a little bit better. But Eric,
go ahead. They want to use his skill set as a receiver a little bit better. But I mean, the biggest thing is he's not a blocker.
Right.
He's shown that, and you got to block in this scheme from the tight end position.
Yep, absolutely. Michael, one of the biggest supporters of all of the Huddle Up Podcast Network's content, jumping in here to say good evening, Lance and Eric on the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Broncos. We'll grab a couple more of these comments really fast. We've got Paul jumping in here. Good to see Paul again. Hit the like button. Tom Laucuff. Wilson doesn't use the tight end much anyways, which is a very good point.
So between all the tight ends for the Seahawks and all the tight ends for the Green Bay Packers the last 2 years, and the reason why I'm looking at both, obviously, Nathaniel Hackett bringing over that similar scheme what Green Bay uses, Russell Wilson with how he uses doesn't really use tight ends anyways. Noah Fant had almost as many targets as both teams' tight ends did. Yep. Like, they don't really use tight ends that much. It's not a high priority for the Broncos. And Albert Okwuegbunam, for what they need out of it, he can provide some of what they need. They can go get a guy day 3 in this pretty talented and deep tight end class, and still have Eric Tomlinson there to be the blocker that they need.
Yeah.
So, like, don't get me wrong, I would have liked to have seen Fat in this offense, see what he can do, but blocking is sort of non-negotiable from the tight end position, and that just was problems there.
Yeah.
And it's not like tight end is such a high usage position, anyways.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Say hello to just a couple of quick names here. Rodney Garcia joining the house. We've got, obviously, Black Knights behind the scenes. We're going to grab him here in just a couple of seconds. Lawrence jumping in again. Seattle has run first as much as I called out Drew. He's going to be a good scheme fit for Drew. I actually kind of agree with that. Just play safe with the football, hand the football off. Don't rely on the quarterback to go out and make those plays for you. Take some shots every now and again, and Drew does a good job throwing the deep ball. So it's going to be fun to see how he kind of translates. I do hope the best for the guy, even though I'm not necessarily a huge fan of him anymore. I do hope that he does actually grow into the player that I thought he could be when he was coming out of Missouri.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what he can do behind Baker Mayfield.
That's a good one. Peter Middleton jumping in here from Cambodia as well. Desert Creature. We've got Ernie as well joining on YouTube. Ernie on YouTube. That's nice. Ernie Mays is one of the biggest Facebook fans that we have. Like, that guy is every time I post something, he jumps in on the comments and says, "Go Broncos!" Like he knows, like, that's the dude. Gary Leeds Palmer jumping in here. Go Broncos! Let's ride. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Let's ride. Duke Mondraffin as well. Jay Kozad, David Wilder. I think that pretty much gets us caught up on the chat stream so far for tonight. So without any further ado, Eric has we got David jumping in here. Nothing to say, just showing some love on Facebook, dropping us some stars. And David, thank you, man. We appreciate that. Eric has the Draft Network mock draft simulator pulled up. We're already set up for the number 64 overall pick, but we would be remiss if we did not introduce our special guest for tonight's show, Jeremy Blackknight232, I believe is his name on Twitch, 323, I believe, on Twitter. Jeremy, what's going on, man? Unfortunately, we can't see your face, but at least we can still hear you.
How's it going, guys? Sorry, I just got home. I actually just got back from Montgomery, so I didn't really have a whole lot of time to get my camera set up.
Yeah, it is what it is. As long as we can hear you, that's fine. We're all good to go. So how excited are you?
I'm doing good. I was really wanting to show off my collection of mobile suits so that way it make Eric look jealous. But unfortunately, I can't do it.
Eric's collection. Go Go ahead.
I was gonna say, let's not turn this to a geek podcast.
Oh, it's all right. We can nerd out on some Star Wars really fast. I know that for sure. There's going to be a couple of Star Wars references, at least once or twice from Erick throughout the show. Kevin jumping in here with a quick super chat. Better prospect, Trevor Penning or Bernard Raymond. # Let's ride. Erick, what do you think?
Penning. I mean, I'm a big fan of both of them. Penning's the better prospect.
Yeah.
I mean, he's looking at being a top 15 pick. Raymond, I think he cracks the first round, but it'll be late in the first round.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see us get Trevor Penning, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to make it that far. I mean, even if he does fall into the 20s or something like that, I don't think the Denver Broncos are going to be able to trade up to get into range to grab him in the first place. We talked about that a couple of times now on DVDD over the last couple of weeks. David Wilder jumping in here again. Good evening, Lance and Erick in Broncos country. I agree with what Noah Fant said. He was never used correctly in Denver. I wonder what could have been under Coach Hackett and our new offense, but we have Russ now, and that makes me happy. # Denver Broncos for life. # Mile High Huddle for life. Absolutely. And David, I'm there with you 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
That's what I was getting at, is like he wasn't used correctly, but his effort wasn't the best either. And his effort wasn't enough to really be like, oh, hey, yeah, let's keep this guy around.
Yeah.
I know a lot of players last year had issues showing effort, and a lot of them are now gone.
Yeah. So Jeremy, aside from this mock draft, dude, I know that you're a Twitch streamer. I know you play a lot of video games right now. What are you playing currently? What are you working on, and how are you doing on that side of things?
I'm playing Brood War right now.
Nice.
Very old game, and it's taxing my brain to almost the maximum capacity I can play at. When you only got a 12-unit selection, and you got to play like you don't have the ability to keep everything under one control group, like it's a mess if you don't know what you're doing, and it's very hard to play.
Yeah. Well, speaking of hard to play and speaking of being under one control group, we are going to be your scouting staff for tonight. Jeremy, you're going to be George Payton playing that role of taking the players that we have now. Erick has us loaded up for number 64 overall. Erick, if you want to pull that in really fast, and we'll kick this mock draft off the right way. Let's see here. Top 5 players available on the board. We have Matt Corral, the quarterback from Ole Miss, Kenneth Walker III, running back from Michigan State, DeMarvin Leal, interior defensive lineman, edge player kind of from Texas A&M, Breece Hall, running back from Iowa State, one of my guys, Chad Muma, the linebacker from Wyoming, Trey McBride, tight end from Colorado State, Travis Jones, interior defensive lineman from UConn, Dylan Parham from Memphis as well, and Josh Paschal, the edge from Kentucky. Now, Erick, obviously, we know the Broncos need to address the offensive line position. They need to address cornerback, potentially a linebacker, safety, interior defensive line, and the edge. Of the guys you're seeing here right now, what seems to be the best fit and fills the biggest need for this team going into the NFL draft?
Well, the best thing here would be to trade down. I don't like how this board fell for Denver. I know Travis Jones is sitting right there. I doubt he gets it past. I doubt he makes it past 30. Come actual draft. And with DJ Jones, as fun as it would be to have Jones, and Jones on the defensive line, Travis Jones, I mean, DJ Jones, you're not playing either one of them full-time as the 4-eye technique. Honestly, as much concerns I have about DeMarvin Leal, he's a guy that can kind of stand up out of a 2-point, be a 3-point interior rusher, a little bit similar to Draymond Jones with the size and what he brings to it. He wouldn't be a bad guy, but a bad option. But the one I'm really looking at is Josh Paschal out of Kentucky. He came back, beat cancer, came back and had some really good games, a couple good years there. So he's one that I'm looking at this. He's one of those guys that I think can be that hybrid on the defensive line, edge, stand up, play down, depending on what you need for. And I think I have Leal rated higher than him just because I think Leal is a little bit more athletic and a little more, refined as a pass rusher, I guess. But I like Paschal a little bit more personally because I think he's not as big of a liability against the run. If you want to look at tackles, I know Abraham Lucas is still on the board, and that's a big name for the Broncos here with the 64th pick, Abraham Lucas. Sound pass protectors, has some issues against the run game, hasn't allowed many sacks in his career. He's not a great athlete. There's some movement skill questions, but he did pretty well at the combine, showing his movement ability. And for me, it's a little bit of a reach at this point. And according to the Draft Network's board, it's a little bit of a reach as well. But yeah, those are, I mean, really it comes down to Pascal or Lucas. Which do you want? Do you want the guy who can play, get after the quarterback, or protect the quarterback?
I think that a big thing here is you got to focus on the bigger need. And right now with the Broncos, obviously they brought in Randy Gregory, who has injury question marks right now. Obviously had the scope on his shoulder just a couple of days ago. You've got Bradley Chubb, who hasn't really been healthy over the last couple of seasons now. Torn ACL, had both of those surgeries on his ankles and whatnot. So that's a big need, and it's a bigger need because of the moves that the Broncos made in free agency. I would rather wait on a tackle here and go and get a premier edge defender, or even if in my opinion, right now, you got to take, which is one of the best players on the board, in Chad Muma. Like, pairing him with Baron Browning, there's a high-end athleticism. There's a lot of high football IQ there. They fit the run really well. They can cover. Both of those guys can play really well. That might be your inside linebacker duo for the future. Now, Jeremy, I'm going to bring you into this here. And where are you looking here? If with the Broncos at number 64, where are you looking? And give us a couple players to kind of narrow this down. We'll make a pick here in a second.
Well, Chad Muma was one that I really like. Very athletic. And plus, what you guys said, you pair him with Baron Browning, you got a good linebacker duo for a couple seasons. Edge is something that I think we really need to look at. And Lucas, the offensive tackle, but those are the three biggest ones that I really think that we need to focus. Those are the three players I like the most. Let's see. I'm just reading this comment too. I got like multiple screens popped up so I can read everything.
Oh, you're good. It's Lawrence Rivera jumping in here. So everybody hear me out. If we go out and trade Jerry Jeudy to go up in the draft to get another wide receiver, because everybody got their receivers during free agency, and I figured it could help our picks and still get a good wide receiver later, or the tight end out of Colorado State, Trey McBride. That'd be an interesting move. Erick has got some very big takes on this. I'm going to grab there's another super chat here from Tom, $5 super. Thank you, Tom, for that. I don't think we have good options at right tackle. He says, I think we have good options at right tackle. If a good one falls, draft him if you like him. But what happens when Darby gets hurt? A game starting? No. Yeah, that's a pretty good point. That's kind of what I was saying. I really do think that Muma should be the pick here, Muma or Pascal, because Lucas you can wait on, and there's a couple of options later in the draft. Braxton Jones being one, Max Mitchell being another one that you can bring into to fill that right tackle position for the future, because you went out, you got Tom Compton, you went out and you got Billy Turner, Calvin Anderson's expected to compete for that right tackle position. If you want to throw another dart at it, make it a little bit later pick, get another guy that fills another need, and Muma and Pascal are probably the two guys I'm looking at here.
I mean, when you look at the tackle position, as you said, with Turner and Compton and Anderson, is when you look at them, they're a lot closer than a lot of people realize. Turner's not some tremendous talent above the rest.
Right.
So you can sit there and you can wait. I mean, there's Matt Waletzko, there's Abena Ease, there's other tackle options that can fit that developmental guide. They're all on 1-year deals. Chad Muma's a fine pick. I still question the value of linebacker this early. I'm really glad he didn't say Trey McBride. There's no need for Denver to take a tight end this early. I think they should add one, but not till later. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the edge position, you are another injury away from Malik Reed being a starter, and that is one thing that you've got to do the best you can to keep from happening, because Malik Reed is really bad. Yep. So Pascal's the guy I go with. Muma's not bad, and it's nothing against Muma. It's just at this point, with how little that we're expecting the Broncos to use the linebacker position, you don't need to spend a 64th overall pick on it, especially when linebacker, like tight end, is pretty deep, and it's a pretty good class.
Yeah. Well, all right, can I ask y'all too something real quick?
Yep.
What's his coverage grade against tight ends, specifically? Like if we had to go Kansas City, would he be good against? God, what's his? I'm having a brain fart on his name today.
Travis Kelce?
Yeah. Would he be good against them?
Chad Muma's fine. I mean, he's a little bit more athletic, but not quite as instinctive as Jose Jewell in coverage. But I mean, with the way that you're going to be covering the tight ends out of the scheme, is you're going to be using like bracketed coverage. It's not going to be a single guy up on him. Okay. So he could definitely help there, but I don't think it's a huge step more than what you're getting out of Jose Jewell, really.
That's true. That's a very true point. All right, so Jeremy, the time has come. We'll grab this comment from Travis really fast, but we need to make a pick, man. Get us moving into the third round here. Travis says, "Good evening, Lance, Eric, and Broncos country, and hello to Jeremy. Sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to say I can see fans' frustration. We all were frustrated with that staff, but also he needs to remember that he is a tight end, and they are used in blocking and the short game. I agree with you, Eric. Trade down, and also the reports, are they legit about Tyrann Mathieu, or is it April Fool's deal?" I've seen a lot of conflicting stuff on the Tyrann Mathieu deal. We'll come back to that here in just a couple minutes. Jeremy, Denver Broncos, number 64 overall pick. Who are we taking?
The Pascal kid from Kentucky, the edge player.
There you go. Bendy player, good athlete, tremendous leader. This kid is an awesome leader. He did a really funny commercial a while ago. It was part of the NIL deals. He was part of a dentist, and he was blocking kids and families and stuff like that from eating a whole bunch of sweets. And it was absolutely hilarious. But this kid, he beat cancer, plays really hard on the field, decent run defender, decent length, decent athleticism, has some bend to him. I like this pick. I want a guy that can maybe slide down inside a little bit more. Eric, what do you think of Josh Pascal really quick?
I like him. I mean, he's got that inside-outside versatility. I think he would make for some creative NASCAR packages from the Broncos if they want to go after the quarterback with more blitzers, something that we didn't see under Vic Fangio, have that aggressiveness there, then he's a good fit for it. And being able to sit behind, not being forced into like a large role right away behind Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory is great for him as he gets a little bit of year, get his feet wet, and just be able to go on next year. I mean, Malik Reed and Bradley Chubb are both free agents after this year, so it gives him a chance to develop for that. And Colby comes in with some stars. Thank you, Colby. We appreciate that.
Thanks, Colby. Appreciate you, man. All right, pick number 75. This board is falling wild right now because Matt Corral, a potential projected first-round pick, has fallen all the way down to number 75. You got Breece Hall from Iowa State. Travis Jones, again, falling here. Carson Strong, quarterback from Nevada. Isaiah Likely, a tight end from Coastal Carolina that I really like. Darian Kennard, interior defensive lineman from Kentucky. Darian Beavers, linebacker from Cincinnati. Probably not a three-down player at the NFL level. The coverage ability is not quite there with Beavers, but as a thumper, a guy you can get in first and second down, add some depth, add some special teams prowess here. There's a couple of names here that are very intriguing, but nothing that I'm necessarily looking at for the Broncos here. Scroll down a little bit, Eric. You got Drake Jackson, Channing Tindall, the linebacker from – there you go. That's a name to watch out. Channing Tindall, linebacker from Georgia. Cade Otton, Jeremy Ruckert, Troy Anderson from Montana State. A couple of linebackers that are down the board a little bit that I really like for the Broncos right here. Eric, what do you think so far?
I mean, with how the board fell, I'm looking at the linebackers here, and the one name that really stands out to me is Troy Anderson, Montana State kid who – tore up the combine. He tore it up at the Senior Bowl. He's been really impressive every step of the way. He had a very interesting career at Montana State, going linebacker, quarterback, running back, linebacker, and even splitting time. Like, he's just done a little bit of everything. He sees the field really well. Mm-hmm. Good athlete, very aware. Going to be a little interesting to see that jumping competition, but the Broncos, I mean, they have Jonas Griffith, who they seem to be really like, and he sounds to be the one that's going to be getting that chance to compete to take that starting job next to Josie Jewell. You have Josie Jewell, you can help Troy Anderson. Like, that would be a good pick there. I don't mind Channing Tindall here. I do like Anderson a little bit more. If you want to go tight end here, Isaiah Likely is the top guy, and I don't think Denver would, but Breece Hall at this point is a really good value. And
great value.
Tremendous value. And he's good complimentary back to work with Javonte Williams and really keep that 1-2 punch.
I agree with you on that. Breece Hall is probably the best pass protector in this draft class. He does a really good job out of the backfield as a receiver as well. Patient runner, gets his feet through the hole quickly. He's not super choppy. But I'm with you on the first guy that you talked about. And so is Tom, jumping in here with a $2 super chat. Troy Anderson, he's going to be great. I think that is probably the way that you need to go. He's more athletic than Chad Muma is for sure, and he just absolutely destroyed the combine. He destroyed the Senior Bowl as well. To me, Troy Anderson all the way. Jeremy, what do you think, buddy?
Well, I guess the fans have spoken. It's going to be Troy Anderson.
Okay, Troy Anderson, the newest Denver Bronco, number 75 overall. Eric, you brought up a really good point. Playing at Montana State, the jumping competition is going to be something interesting to pay attention to. As you said, he's got some time to develop. You can use him on special teams because he has good length. He can move around. He's a very good athlete again. Solid tackler, and that might be the best way that you can see him on the field early as a Broncos rookie. But at the same time, fills that future need, gets you some more athleticism as a coverage linebacker. I like this pick a lot.
He's a good one. Lawrence Rivera comes in and says, who would score more in a tight end to wide receiver battle, Hopkins or Grock, to go back to my Judy situation? Not sure what you mean. There's so many variables with it, but based off quarterback and everything. So not really sure there on what exactly you're asking.
Yeah. 96 overall. There's no way that Breece Hall is still going to be here, but that is easily the best player on this board right now. There's some rumors saying that he could be the first running back taken in this class. Potentially even at the tail end of the first round. There's a lot of people that really like Breece Hall. As far as Eric's kind of searching the board here. You've got Cade Otton, the tight end from Washington, Greg Dulcich from UCLA, Fedarian Mathis, interior defensive lineman from Alabama, James Cook, another quality running back that Eric has a scouting report up on milehighhuddle.com. Sam Williams, another edge, and I'm not shy of taking another edge in this class. This class is very deep. There's a lot of high-quality, versatile players. Sam Williams is a guy that has some character red flags, but at the same time, the talent is easily puts him into the second-round conversation. Jake Ferguson from the tight end is from Washington as well here. A lot of quality players here, but the way that this has fallen, you have to take Breece Hall, in my opinion. There's no way he's going to be here. This is tremendous value. That's the guy.
So, Jeremy, are there any positions you specifically want me to look at?
Let's see what we got here. What round do you think we could grab a tackle in the fourth, maybe?
Let's pull it up and see who's left. So, Cordell Volson, Matt Waletzko, Braxton Jones, Max Mitchell, Kellen Diesch, Dare Rosenthal. Those guys are all still left, and I think that when we get to that 115th, 116th pick that the Broncos have, I still think Matt Waletzko will be there. I still think basically all those guys will be there. Matt Waletzko is the one name to really keep an eye on for it. Braxton Jones, I really like there as well. So there's definitely options. And if you wanted to go here, I have no issue with that because Waletzko and Jones both have tremendous upside that, it's not hard to see their worth as a top 100 pick. But it's also a position that you could definitely, I think, hold off a bit because there's still a lot of talent left on the board.
Yeah. I think I just wanted to see what was left. I didn't know what we had. Now I'm not familiar with the Iowa running. Is it Iowa State or is it Iowa running back? I'm not really familiar with Mr. Hall here. So
there's every player, they have their concerns about him. He didn't, if I remember right, he didn't test out extremely great. He tested out fine. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. He'll bring it as a blocker. He's not afraid of that. There is some similarities there with Javonte Williams to really have a pretty good, powerful duo. But I think Breece Hall has a little bit more elusiveness with him to be used in this outside zone scheme. He has good vision and complement Javonte Williams as well.
The one knock that I have on him is he's not necessarily a huge home run hitter. He's not going to just break away runs. And that's a big concern with Javonte Williams as well. Now, Javonte has those big runs because he runs guys over and he just continues to work his way down the field. Breece Hall is not a tackle breaker like that. He has the ability to elude and stuff, but he's not a guy that's going to take it to the house for you. As far as what else we've got here, there's a couple of decent tight ends. Cade Otton is a good one that I really like there coming from Washington. Dulcich out of UCLA is another good one. And Jake Ferguson, who seems to be falling right now, is another guy in this range that would be okay. I like Sam Williams a lot, though, too. And he's got some versatility to play a little bit off ball. It plays a really good edge defender, good run defender. That would be another direction that I would look at.
Man, I don't know. It's tough between the edge because we're, like you guys said, crap, I forgot his name, the free agent edge guy was signed. Yeah, if he gets hurt, then we're gonna have the same problem of having the other backup edge guy be our starter. So As much as I would love to have James Cook or Bryce Hall, I think doubling up on the edge would probably be our best bet. That way it safeguards us against not having to rely on like people that really don't want to be playing.
Now,
up there.
With Sam Williams, it is worth noting that there were some off-field issues with him that teams definitely have to clear up.
Yeah, that'd be
outside of that, he would probably be a top 50 pick. So it's that point of where you'd be comfortable taking that risk on him. It's sexual assault stuff, which is something that's always can be a touchy subject. So something to keep in mind with that as well. And edges, I mean, I'm all for it. I really like Sam Williams. It's just one of those things of got to be comfortable for an actual NFL teams. They have to be comfortable with the off-field stuff and what they're getting with him and who he is.
Yeah. Okay, well then that pretty much just changed that whole dynamic because I didn't know he had those up on him. Cook or Hall? Who's the better? I know you said Hall's a little bit better because he's got more versatility. He's got better vision. Cook is what's his deal?
James Cook is basically the ideal complement to Javonte Williams.
He really is. He's Dalvin Cook's little brother and plays a lot like him. A little bit faster, though. I think that he actually has a little bit more breakaway speed than Dalvin does. Good receiver out of the backfield. Actually a better receiver than Breece Hall is. Not quite the pass protector, but as Eric says, he is the perfect fit, the perfect dynamic fit to complement Javonte Williams.
I think I'd take Cook as much. I know there's other players, but I think you can't just pass. You can't pass him up on there.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Eric, why don't you break down Cook a little bit more for us while we wait on this board to fall? Actually, never mind. We just got back right to the board, so we'll jump back into what is this pick number 115. Eric's most favorite player in this draft, Matt Araiza, the punter from San Diego State, is available right now. You've also got Martin Emerson, a cornerback from Mississippi State, who I thought he'd have been long gone by this particular point. Apparently, the draft network is a little bit lower on him than I am. Tyreek Smith, the edge from Ohio State. Josh Joby, a cornerback from Alabama that I used to like last year. They didn't develop nearly enough. I wish that he kind of got a little bit better in coverage, more fluid. D'Angelo Malone, an edge that was pointed out to me the other day, one of the good friends of the show. But Eric actually did a mock draft with D'Angelo Malone. I like this kid a lot. Another edge from Western Kentucky. Tyler Beatty, running back from Missouri. Kyron Williams, running back from Notre Dame. Probably not going to go in that direction. To me, you got to take a look at these cornerbacks. And you got to take a look at D'Angelo Malone, man.
I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. If you want somebody who's going to be a strong run defender on the boundary, then you're not looking at Emerson. I mean, he's fine in coverage, but his run defense is not great. There's some physicality issues there. D'Angelo Malone, it's a similar issue. He's a really good pass rushing prospect. He's just a bit of a problem and not quite the same as big of a liability against the run as Malik Reed, but he's not much better there. And at least with D'Angelo Malone, you have more of a pedigree that you can sit there and work with. You have more athletic traits and more length and the build to work with D'Angelo Malone to develop him a little bit and go from there. Then Matt Araiza, I mean, somewhat joking here. Sam Martin, you'd be able to move on from him. Matt Araiza, he has the ability to be a punter and a kicker, although you'd likely want to focus in on one. Huge leg, could be a tremendous weapon in Mile High Huddle or in the Mile High. The issue is with Russell Wilson. Like, if Denver didn't go get Russell Wilson and we're still looking at Drew Lock and somebody else, then I'd be all for Matt Araiza here to use that weapon to really flip field position. With Russell Wilson, shouldn't be as big.
Got a question here coming in from RJ. Alontae Taylor or Jelani Woods, are those guys potentially available?
Does not look like Alontae Taylor is, but I know Jelani Woods is, and I'm a huge fan of Jelani Woods.
Yeah, super
athletic tight end, tough blocker. I mean, there's a lot of upside with him. He kind of got overshadowed at the combine because Chigo Okonkwo kind of like just tested out of the park there. But I'm a big fan of Jelani Woods. At this point, I really want to be looking at the cornerback depth, but it's just not the best unless you're willing to take Martin Emerson or MJ Emerson and deal with his issues as a run defender and try to fix that.
Yeah. Tom jumping in here and kind of agrees with that. He says cornerback, I think, is a huge need when playing in dime. And it sounds like the Broncos are going to be playing a lot of nickel and dime, some 4-2-5, 4-1-6 kind of looks and stuff like that. 4 down linemen. Well, I guess 2 down linemen, 2 edge defenders, 1 linebacker, 5 or 6 defensive backs, something like that. And I agree with Tom here. Cornerback is a huge need, but I mean, Joby is probably a guy that's a boundary-only guy. Martin Emerson can play the slot, but he's not a great run defender. It just doesn't necessarily fit with what the Broncos have because they have Ronald Darby, they have Pat Surtain, they have Michael Ojemudia that plays on the boundary only. They need a slot guy. They need a nickel cornerback, and these guys just don't necessarily project very well there. Eric, I really do – Kobe Bryant might be an interesting one. He's still more boundary cornerback. A Caleb Evans would be a decent one here as well. But I mean, it's right now it's really rough taking a player that high when you have a guy like D'Angelo Malone sitting right there in front of you, and you need edge depth as well.
So, Jeremy, which way are you thinking?
Well, we do need corner help, but it's not looking any good. And I really don't know much about Monteric Brown from Arkansas because I really don't know the grade on him. I would take D'Angelo Malone just to shore up the edge position. But if you got a good punter just sitting right there, I mean, if you want to have a stacked roster, get the best players. And if he's just sitting there, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. So I'd personally take Matt. If it was just me, I'd take the punter all day, every day. But
lock it in. I'm about this life. Let's have a punter. This kid was so tremendous at the combine. He actually had I think it was like a 74-yard punt that actually hit the end line. It bounced once and then hit the end line, and it would have been really close to being a touch or down at the 1-yard line. But if there was coverage defenders, there's guys covering the punt. Like this kid's tremendous, and you still have you're the next pick here too as well, so you can get D'Angelo Malone if you want him as well.
Yeah, I just want to see him ricochet a football off of that big old jumbotron, or not jumbotron, but the big old thing that Dallas has. I just want to see him just ricochet one off of that. That would be make for some headlines there. Let's just do D'Angelo Malone shore up that edge position because I really, really think that our edge is just not like behind Bradley Chubb. I mean, what happens when he goes down? You got nobody to really step up.
Yeah. No, I know. Chad was kind of having a field day about the punter in the third. But I mean, he's a weapon on special teams, and that's always nice to have, especially in Mile High. And it's not just that he has a big leg; he's got good accuracy with it. Yep. And also, there's that fact that you can turn to him to be a kicker too. If anything were to happen, knock on wood, to Brandon McManus, you have him. If time comes up and Brandon McManus wants out, well, you can see what Arezia does as the kicker too, and you can have this dual position, open up a roster spot elsewhere. Not something that I think will really happen in the NFL. They like to have one person for each of those, but he gives you that option. And honestly, with how things seem to be, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up as a top 120 pick, really, just because of how big his leg can be. Now, looking here, tackle, we got to look at tackle. Braxton Jones is still
there. He is. That's the
Max
guy.
Control. There's a lot of tackles that you can still work with. Obenaiz, who has vines for arms. And the big thing with tackle is that it's fine to wait on this year because you have those 3 guys that compete for the starting job, and you can take that developmental guy a little bit later. Yeah. And they have options with those guys, the 3 that they have now. They're on 1-year deals, so they can sit there, and if the developmental guy's not ready yet, they can try to extend him again. Yeah. So this is definitely, I think, the right place to be looking at Braxton Jones or Max Mitchell.
Yeah, and Joey Budkey's upset. He says that we got to take a tackle. He said a tackle earlier with a bunch of exclamation points. We looked at it. As soon as we looked at it, he said we got to go with Braxton Jones, Southern Utah, kid that was really impressive at the Senior Bowl, impressive athlete. I believe he was sub-5 in the 40-yard dash. Not that the 40-yard dash means a lot, but there is some translation there. Guys that move very well. He is a fluid mover, good in the 3-cone as well. Like This is a guy that potentially has starter upside. He might take a couple of years to get there, especially with the small school. But Braxton Jones, Max Mitchell is another guy I really like a lot as well. He's from Louisiana. He didn't run very well. It didn't test very well either. And his fluidity on the field wasn't great. But every time I turn on the tape, it shows me something different. He's out there in front a lot. I like both of these guys. Can't go wrong here with either one of these tackles.
Now, Braxton Jones, what's his knock? What's the only knock for them? Because I think we do need it, because everybody's saying get Jones. What's his only knock? Or what's his certain knocks? How about that?
The big thing with him is that he tends to open himself up on the inside. He'll guard the outside lane extremely well. And I think Arizona State was a game where they just ate him up by that initial attack outside, counter step inside, and just caused all sorts of havoc. So you have to develop that. He's not a guy who you can move inside to guard either. He is just a tackle-only prospect, though he does have the potential to play on either side, which is always nice. And there's just technical work on top of technical work, and making that jump from Southern Utah to the NFL with needing that. I mean, he's definitely a guy that he could possibly start this year, but it's not ideal. You want him sitting for that year and to be developed.
Yeah. Peter Middleton jumping in here really fast saying, I don't trust our offensive line depth. It's not nearly as bad as you think. It's not the top end depth, but there's guys there that are quality players at every one of those positions. So
the big thing is that Tom Compton and Billy Turner both have the ability to play inside as well.
Yep.
I'm fine with the interior offensive line stuff because of that aspect. Yeah. Because whichever one doesn't win the starting tackle job, or if neither of them do, Calvin Anderson takes a step forward, you can look at them being working on the inside. I'd still look to add one a little bit later, a developmental guy. But, I mean, at this point, I'm looking at Jones.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, too.
Yeah, I think everybody's in chats in agreement, too. Let's just go ahead and grab Braxton Jones.
Yeah. There's one thing I want to address with what Erick said really fast as far as the interior offensive line. You're absolutely correct, Erick, as far as you've got a handful of guys that can play. I mean, obviously, Graham Glasgow, Dalton Reisner. You've got Quinn Miners there as well. Lloyd Cushenberry, if you can continue to develop and become a little bit stronger at the center position. But Billy Turner and Tom Compton, they're only here for 1 year. And Graham Glasgow is in the last year of his deal as well. This might be a class where you can go in and get a guy like a Cole Strange from Chattanooga, maybe a Kaelin Geiger, or even a guy like Braxton Jones that has some versatility to him that can play on the inside as well. I think that the interior offensive line with where we're at right now is fine. But if you want to take a flyer on a guy on day 3 and say, this is our developmental kid, we need to kind of, shore up the depth for the long term, that would be a pretty decent idea, at least in my opinion.
That's why I said that you could add a guy on the interior a little bit later.
Yep. Sorry, I was reading a comment too, so I missed that. Apologies.
And with the interior offensive line, it's not really one of those positions that you want to address as a need before it's a need. Mm-hmm. And I think that Denver, if they really wanted to, I don't think they'd have any issue bringing back Tom Compton or Billy Turner after this year for additional depth. Obviously, you have Dalton Reisner being a free agent, but they still have Graham Glasgow under contract. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a guy right there. They're developing Quinn Miners, so it's not like they don't have options on the interior either.
Yeah. All right, so pick number 206 right here. Erick has the cornerback board pulled up, so I'm guessing he's targeting a specific player here in the 7th round. Kalen Barnes from Baylor. You got Matt Hankins from Iowa, Demarion Williams from Houston, Kyler McMichael from North Carolina, Sam Webb from Missouri Southern. Is that right? I think it was Missouri State or Missouri Southern. I can't remember exactly where he's from. Jermaine Waller, Missouri Western. Okay, apologies for that. Darrell Baker Jr. from Georgia Southern. Erick, what do you got going in your dome piece up there? What's up, man?
Well, I was just looking at corners. It wasn't specifically targeting him. I do notice that we haven't taken the corner, and we all know George Payton's love for corners.
Yep.
He's got the posters of just all these corners hanging up in his room. So it's one position that you definitely got to look at. Just a quick look at seeing who else is available. And I mean, corner, safety, and one of those 4 guys, or even Demarion Williams, who I think can really do well inside as a slot corner. Matt Hankins, I think, is a little bit better inside. Kalen Barnes had one, I believe, the fastest time at the combine for the 40, actually.
Yeah.
Out of Baylor, I mean, Baylor just put up a bunch of speedsters. Still has a lot to work on as being a quarterback, and Nick Grant, he's one that Denver actually is visiting with as well, which is worth noting. And they have been linked to Jonea. I'm not sure how to say his first name. Thomas out of Georgia Tech.
Nick Grant was the guy that I was kind of looking at, just because I knew that the Broncos were taking a look at him. I haven't got a chance to watch him specifically, so why don't you break him down just a little bit?
Nick Grant?
Yep.
I mean, he's got some good versatility. He can definitely lay the wood. Watching him, it reminds me a little bit of Kareem Jackson with how physical he can be, and sometimes that it can be a little problematic for your teammates. But he can drop down. He can play the slot. I don't think that's the best option. And if you're looking for just a pure slot guy, then I'm looking at Demarion Williams.
Yeah.
Coming in to compete with Jermaine Johnson for that third safety spot. Nick Grant will do that, and he would be a good contributor right away on special teams as a gunner.
Yeah. So Peter jumping in here, and he says wide receiver, speedster, and special teams returner. Do any of these players have any special teams versatility as far as a punt returner, kick returner? The guys that are available, at least at the top of the board.
Kaelin Barnes, I think, could offer up some returnability when you look at the speed, and I think he's got some shiftiness as well. But if you're looking for a return specialist, then let me see here. Let me scroll down. Kaelin Geiger out of Texas Tech. I mean, that dude, he brings it as a return specialist. You can find certain ways to use him on offense, but I mean, his way to a roster spot will be as a return specialist.
All right, Jeremy, what do you think, man? Where are we going here?
Well, it depends on if Tyrann Mathieu, if we sign him, what we do there. Just for the special teams, or actually, you know what? No, take that back. Nick Grant would be a good choice. I like what you guys said about him. He'd make an impact right away, and I think we can always use an extra safety just in case something happens.
Yeah,
that's true.
And mentioning the Honey Badger, I know Jordan Schultz reported out there that Denver was interested in it. It's been refuted by a couple other reporters, and everything that I've heard is that Denver being thrown out with interest there is more so agents on his side trying to make there to see more interest. We'll see. I mean, if Denver could add Mathieu, I mean, that'd be great, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, speaking of the Honey Badger, got a couple of super chats here, and one of them is a shout, like a callback to last year. The second one, we're going to throw Tom up first. It says, Eric, do you think if we sign the Honey Badger, can Caden Stearns stay on the field as well and drop down and be able to keep up with the wide receivers? I think you actually got that a little bit backwards. I think that Honey Badger might be the guy that you play down in the slot. If you're going to run three safeties, and keep Caden Stearns on the back half and the two high. Eric, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, either way, they both have the versatility to do it. Tyrann Mathieu, I mean, he dropped down to the nickel quite often. It's something that he can do. I mean, he's tough. He's physical. There's some concerning about his age, but I don't think he's slowing down just yet, so I still think he has a few good years left. But yeah, I mean, you have versatility with either way.
Yeah. So, and then the second one here, Dehane jumping in here with a $5 super. And thank you both for joining us and for all of your guys' support, guys. He says, Lance loves any safety with the last name Grant. And damn it, he's right. He's right. Richie Grant at 40 was my guy. And guess where he went, guys? He didn't go to the Broncos, but he went to the Atlanta Falcons after the trade. The Broncos went and got Javonte Williams. Pick number 40, Atlanta took my boy, Richie Grant. Dehane, good callback, man. We have the best viewers, dude, I swear. So good. Thank you.
There was a question I think some people in chat were asking. Ajabo, do you see him falling to 64 with his Achilles, or do you think teams are still going to pick him up?
I don't think so.
Honestly, I still think he goes in the first round. I mean, there's just too much upside for it. And I think that a lot of teams will try to talk themselves into the fact that, oh, yeah, he could be available this year. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't think Cam Akers is. I think he's more the exception than the rule at the moment. But yeah, I don't think he does. At the very least, top 40.
I don't disagree with you. I still think he goes in the first round. I think he's probably going to go within the top 25. Quite honestly, like there's definitely. The concerns with the Achilles is a big deal, but at the same time, like the talent's there. He still needs some time to develop, as Eric said, and somebody's going to see him fall in love with the traits and whatnot. And if they have a couple of decent players, Cleveland actually kind of makes sense if you think about it. A team, you know, even at 14 or 15 or 13, whatever the hell they're at, like that's like they can definitely take a guy like that, let him develop for a little bit, and have a dynamic duo with Myles Garrett there in a couple of years. So that, I mean, I still like Ojabo enough to potentially have him in the first round. All right, back to the draft here. We've got Sam Webb again, Erick Ezukanma. I'm not sure how to say that last name. Pardon me, guys. Jermaine Waller, Michael Woods, Amari Carter, safety from Miami, Jatire Carter from Southern, Jashawn Corbin, Florida State, Charleston Rambo, a guy that I like out of Miami. He's a wide receiver. Not a lot of special teams versatility, but just a guy that is just a solid pass catcher. Like he finds a way to get himself open. Not the best athlete, but it's been a guy that I've watched. Being a closet Miami fan, I've always had kind of a respect for Charleston Rambo. So that's an interesting one. And I know that the Broncos are wanting to get more cornerback and wide receiver depth, even with the guys that they have right now, because those are the guys you're going to fill your special teams units with. So that might be an interesting name to take a look at.
Yeah, Sam Webb is the one I'm eyeing here. I think he can go a little bit earlier than this. He absolutely killed it at the combine. His RAS score is 9.36. Mm-hmm. I know that Denver, most teams use a similar formula to RAS, and I'm sure that Sam Webb tested high. George Payton seems to like it. He likes those athletic aspects of it. And he tested well in the key areas that you're looking at for a corner. And I think Sam Webb, he's got some inside-outside versatility. It's a little bit of a long shot because you're definitely taking a big jump in competition. But, I mean, the coaching staff, they want to focus on developing players. Well, here's a test for you.
Yeah. Well, hell, we're pick 232. These are your dart throws. Like, you got to have a guy that's pounding the table. This is your scouting pick. You know, we had a guy that was an area scout somewhere around there and watched him and said, hey, you know, this guy fits with what we want to do with defensively. Like, this is a good pick. And, Erick, I agree with you on that. Jeremy, what do you think, dude?
Well, I just want to say, we're at my number 2. But anyway,
look at that. Look at that.
But anyway, I think we need to take a corner here. I mean, if Sam Webb can, if he's got starter potential and he can be molded and shaped to be a very good corner, I don't see what's. And if he's got all the tools and traits to be a starting corner in the future, grab him. But I mean, I don't see any other positions that we really need. I mean, we could get wide receivers out of the undrafted. There's probably a bunch of undrafted guys you can get.
Yeah, there's. I mean, the undrafted free agents is always fun to take a look at, and that's where Erick really does a lot of his best work. Like, everyone focuses on the top 50, 100, maybe even top 150 players. Erick doing the work that he does, got 600 players scouted or something like that this year. It's just ridiculous. So the articles coming out with the undrafted free agents, that's where Erick really does his best work and shows off just the depth of knowledge that he has every single year. So yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a couple cornerbacks, a couple wide receivers, maybe even another edge defender that the Broncos can take a look at going into the undrafted free agency pool. But guys, we got to wrap this up here. So let's take a big rundown. I'll just read them off really fast. Number 64 overall, Broncos take Josh Paschal, the edge from Kentucky. At number 75, Troy Anderson, linebacker, Montana State. Number 96, James Cook, running back from Georgia. 115, Matt Araiza, the punter from San Diego State. That's one of Erick's most favorite draft picks this year. Denver Broncos at 116 take D'Angelo Malone, edge defender out of Western Kentucky. 145, Braxton Jones, a guy that I really like, offensive tackle out of Southern Utah. 206, Nick Grant, a versatile safety from Virginia. And at 232 to wrap things up, small school prospect with a lot of high-end upside, Sam Webb, the cornerback from Missouri Western. Tom jumping in here with another super chat. He's been super heavy in the super chat today. And Tom, we appreciate you, man, for showing the love. Do you think that North Carolina's running back will be undrafted? Erick, I'm not sure who he's talking about.
Ty Chandler, and I think he'll hear his name called somewhere 5th or 6th round this year.
Okay.
We'll see, though. Running back is a good class, and, you know, the value of the position, running backs don't matter. So,
is that a potential fit for Denver?
It wouldn't be a bad one. I mean, later on. I don't think it's like an ideal fit. I don't think it's a great one, but it could work.
All right. Well, Travis jumping in here. Great show tonight, guys. Enjoy the rest of your night. As always, go Broncos. Michael jumping in here. Great show tonight. Lance and Erick on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast with special guest Jeremy Blackknight. Let's ride and go Broncos. Now, Jeremy, dude, what do you think? How did we do with what we got? What do you think? Did we get all the needs that we needed to grab? Did grab some players that you like? And did we help you out understanding a little bit more of this draft class this year?
Yeah, I think we got a lot of it, but I just wonder if what the worst case scenario is if the bad board happens to crop up. That's what I'm kind of curious about. What kind of hay we can make with that. But this board looked really, really well. The draft, the prospects that we got was good, and it covered up a lot of needs that we really needed to desperately fix. And now as for the punter, I mean, I wouldn't have got him at 3, but again, I just want to see the dude kick it off the damn Dallas little thing. That's just what I want to see. Just so that way I could call my mom because she's a Dallas fan. Say, hey, Mom, did you see that? She's like, shut up. Me and her always go at it.
Yeah, and with this, I mean, not doing any trades definitely hurt a little bit. It just adds so much extra time to do that, figure out what the value is and everything. But there are multiple points with how that board fell that I think would have been opportune times for Denver to move down, acquire more picks. They currently have only 5 picks in next year's draft. They're not looking at getting any compensatory picks next year either. So those would be good times to try to acquire a little bit additional 2023 draft capital. But overall, I think that it was a good draft, and we thank you for coming on and joining us.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Now, there is one thing I want to say. I got a bold take. If one of the top tier cornerbacks fall in the first round, I wouldn't be surprised if we trade up and try to get him. I wouldn't be surprised.
That's actually a pretty bold take, and I agree with you on that one because we all know that George Payton loves to go and draft cornerbacks. Like he's drafted, I think, 8 or 9 different cornerbacks in his time. Obviously, with the number 9 overall pick last year, taking Pat Surtain, which was a move that neither Eric and I really wanted. We both kind of wanted Justin Fields there, but seeing the way this kind of turned out has been a breath of fresh air because Surtain has played great. Fields is kind of struggling to adapt to the NFL life, but they need another guy. And I think that the guys that are at the top of this draft class, there's some versatility with each and every one of them. Sauce Gardner would be a guy if he did fall, which I don't think he's going to make it out of the top 10. Derek Stingley Jr., a little rough there, but Andrew Booth Jr., who just had sports hernia surgery, that might be a guy to watch there because the sports hernia surgery, I don't think that it's going to be a super huge deal, but with that, he could be a guy similarly to David Ojabo, a guy projected as the top 15 pick that could slide to the tail end of the first round, where Denver might be able to target a guy like him because he's got versatility to play on the inside if he wanted to, and that would be a sneaky good move.
Well, I think that Sauce Gardner, I think that he'll be the first corner drafted.
Me too.
Derek Stingley, I've heard a lot of mixed reviews on, a lot of it dealing with the injuries and there being a lot more concerns there than is being let on. So I wouldn't be surprised if he fell. But I still think that he'll go somewhere in the first round, just a little bit later. Andrew Booth is one that's interesting just because of what's going around on him. And honestly, I don't think that outside of Sauce Gardner, I don't think the other two are in most teams' top 3 corners. Trent McDuffie and
Kyler Gordon?
No, not Kyler Gordon. And maybe it's 2 of the 3. I can't remember. I'd have to pull up the list and everything and all that. Kerr Elam, the Florida.
Okay.
There seems to be a lot of love and support for him as being one of the top 3 corners. A lot of chatter of him going top 50 or top 20.
Really? That's interesting to me. I like him. He's fluid, good man coverage cornerback. I've questioned his own capabilities at times, but I like Kyler Elam enough. I think he would maybe be a fit in Denver if they're going to run some more man stuff rather than the cover 4 stuff that they like to do. But yeah, interesting stuff. Now, Jeremy, we're going to have to get out of here, man. So before we get out of here, though, I just want to just a quick shout out to you. Where can we find all your stuff, dude? I know you're a Twitch streamer. Give us your Twitter handle and stuff like that. After I grab this from Tom, another super chat. Tom, dude, thank you. Thank you so much for your support tonight, man. It's great. Would you trade Judy and a second to move up into the first? Depending on who was there, maybe, probably not. I think that I would rather keep Judy and 64 for right this second and try to keep the offense intact. But anyways, Jeremy, back to you here. Where can we find all your stuff? Give us your Twitter handle, your Twitch stream, everything like that, all your social medias, and then we'll get you out of here, buddy.
All right. Anyway, you guys can find me on Twitch at Blackknight232. I do a lot of sci-fi games. I do a lot of strategy games. Stellaris and StarCraft is my main 2 right now. My Twitter is Blackknight232. I just post memes and stuff on there. So if you guys like that stuff, you guys can engage with me. If I ask me like, hey, what would I think at what we're going to do at this pick or this, that, and the third. I mean, I don't mind talking to everybody. Now, as far as for what Tom said, if it was somebody else, not Judy, I'd probably do it depending on who the player was. But after looking at what Judy was doing with Russ, I think Judy's going to feast this year. I think he's going to get a lot of tutties this year. I really do. I think he's going to be used the correct way, the way he should have been used.
I don't disagree with you on that one. Now, Jeremy, thank you again for joining us. Again, guys, Blackknight232. Is it 232 on Twitter? Yeah. Blackknight232 on Twitter. Get at him. Give him all your comments, all your feedback, anything you like, dislike, and whatnot. Jeremy, thank you again very much for joining us tonight. You take care, buddy. We'll see you later.
All right.
All right, guys, that was Jeremy. With that, guys, we're going to have to get out of here as well. Thank you all for joining us on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. You guys can find us on Twitter by finding me at Sanderson MHH and for Erick at Erick Trickel. Also, shout out to Scott Kennedy back on Behind the Glass this week at Scout Kennedy on Twitter. Also, guys, while you're at it, make sure you guys are following at Mile High Huddle. That's some other account where you guys are going to find breaking news and analysis, film breakdowns, draft articles, opinion articles, anything covering your Denver Broncos. That's where you guys are going to find it. Facebook supporters, make sure you go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. That's the podcast account there where you guys are going to find anything regarding the Huddle Up Podcast content, including the Huddle Up Podcast. You'll have Building the Broncos, our show, Dove Valley Deep Divers, Broncos for Breakfast in the mornings, and then Mile High Insiders on Saturdays as well. Folks, if you guys are financially able to do so and really want to have a great way of supporting the show, help spread the word as well. HuddleUpPod.com, guys. That's where you get yourself a hat. There's a t-shirt, a hoodie, face mask, a onesie for your baby if that's your thing. That's the merch tent, guys. HuddleUpPod.com. If you guys are not financially able to do so, everybody is capable of doing these three things. You should be doing them for a long time now. Subscribe wherever you guys get your podcast content, whether it's on YouTube specifically, but Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, no matter what. Anything Mile High Huddle, Huddle Up Podcast, subscribe, please. Like every video you guys see on all social media platforms. And if you love it, share it. Get it in front of as many Broncos fans as possible, because without your guys' support, we could not do what we do best, which is cover your Denver Broncos. Now, with that, Erick, I want your quick thoughts on this mock draft, and then we're going to get out. Oh, Andrew Baker jumping in here. Some love for the Valley Boys, he said. Yes, sir. Erick,
thank you for joining us, Andrew. We appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks again, Andrew. Sorry about that. Erick, I want your quick thoughts. We're kind of pressed for time here. So quick thoughts on the mock draft, how it turned out, any corrections you wanted to make there, and then we'll get out of here real quick.
I mean, there were a few positions I would have targeted a little bit earlier. I would have liked to have seen an interior defensive lineman added at some point. Overall, it's not bad. Would have liked to see corner targeted a little bit earlier, maybe wait on that second edge a little bit longer and kind of balance that out. But I mean, it turned out fine. Got some prospects that I really like, and filled some holes that the Broncos need to fill before, and that could be needs next year. So, yeah,
I thought it was pretty solid. I know going back-to-back edges, well, I guess not back-to-back edges, but early edges is something that I really value in this class. We talked about that a little bit on the show. This edge class is so deep, and the Broncos need a lot of depth there. Jonathan Cooper needs to develop a little bit more. Malik Reed just hasn't been quite the consistent player that you need. Getting Pascal, getting D'Angelo Malone, those are two really twitchy guys, lengthy guys that can play really well on the outside. I think D'Angelo Malone, if you use him correctly as a blitzer, he can blitz the B gaps a little bit. So that's a great way to go about that. Cornerback would be something that I would look at a little bit earlier. We had Martin Emerson on the board, not quite the best fit, but still would have at least given the Broncos another option there. And then I love the Braxton Jones pick, man. That was a big need for this Broncos team moving forward in the long term. And I think that Jones has the high end versatility and the upside to be able to be one of those guys that the Broncos can rely on in the next 4 to 5 years. So it was a great time. And thank you again, Jeremy. We'll give you one more shout out really fast before we get out of here. Erick, any last words?
No, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for all of your guys' continued support. We will be back next week, and I think we're doing Would You Rather, so it's going to be interesting. Because last time we did it, we still had the first and the ninth and 40th overall pick. So it's going to be a little bit interesting. It's going to be a little bit tougher on you to try to find those good would you rather's to spark that conversation.
Dude,
when
the
you're
last
talking
one
about 64th and later picks. So
well, the last would you rather questions, I had you stumped on a couple of them because I brought some freaking heat, guys. Like it was awesome. Make sure you guys go check that out. That was the beginning, right before the combine, I believe, is when that episode dropped. Check it out, Mile High Huddle on the YouTube page. But anyways, with that, guys, we're gonna have to get out of here. Thank you all again for joining the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. For Erick, Trickel, I'm Lance Sanderson. You guys stay safe and take care. Have a great and safe weekend, guys. We'll see you guys same time, same place next week. And as always, go Broncos.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.